Thank you so much, our viewers. This is Teacher Duncan. I'm ready to present to you a social studies lesson, standard 8. And in today's lesson, we are going to handle KCPE map work and map interpretation. Therefore, get a book, get a notebook and a pen as we commence. Welcome so much, those who are watching us all over. In case of any question, use the number that is down there to WhatsApp us. So today's lesson is about map reading and map interpretation, and we are going to handle KCPE analysis. How does examiners set the KCPE on map work and map reading? So this is social studies for standard 8, and we are going to handle map reading and map interpretation. Map reading and map interpretation. Now, to begin with, map work in KCPE has got 7 questions. That's out of 60. We have 7 questions that come on map work, and that is what we want to handle today. Now, map work, there are several areas that examiners look at when they want to set the questions for KCPE. And we'll be looking at these areas, how they are handled, and what are some of the ways in which examiners look at when they want to set KCPE. Now, map reading and map work, there are 12 areas that the examiner look at. Remember, we also be looking at how map work has been set all over there from the past KCPE. So we want to look at the 7 areas that are set in KCPE. 1, we have altitude. Altitude is an area that is set in KCPE. Another one is direction. We have direction. We also have economic activities. Economic activities. We have climate. We have administration. Administration. We have settlement. We also have measurement. We also have calculation of distance on a map. And then also have religion, economic activities, social services, and social services. So these are areas that are set in KCPE, and we will be looking at all of them one by one as we see what are you supposed to know about which area. And let us start with altitude. Let us start with altitude. Altitude. And before we look at this, I will also be drawing a map on the screen for you to see what are we talking about. So what is altitude? On a map, altitude is the height above the sea level. It is the height above the sea level. That is what altitude is. In KCPE, you need to know 1, about high altitude, and 2, low altitude. These are areas that are commonly tested. Now, on high altitude, what are you supposed to know? How will you know that this is an area of high altitude? That's now a question that we wanted to answer. How will you know that this is an area of low altitude? Remember, these are areas that are examined in KCPE. For you to know that this is an area of high altitude, one, you look at areas such as the source of river, where the river is coming from. Number two, the forest. Number three, you look at trigonometrical stations such as hills and mountains. You also look at some of the crops that grow in highland areas such as tea and coffee. And then also in altitude, the examiner might use figures to test. He might use figures to test. For example, if it is hills, you'll find so many hills located in a given area, and now you go for the hill that has got the highest figure. That's about the high altitude. And then, still on the high altitude, there are also some features such as dairy farming. Dairy farms, these are practices that take place in highland areas. Let us look at two, low altitude. How will you know that this is an area of low altitude? Or what are the indicators of low altitude? One, the mouth of a river. Where the river drains its water becomes an area of low altitude. Number two, indicators such as cattle ranch, they also indicate that this is an area of low altitude. Crops such as rice, cotton, they are also indicators of low altitude. Then ranches is an activity of the lowlands where population is low. Where the population is low, that is a lowland. Also lakes, seas, oceans, these are depressions with water, which shows that this area is an area of low altitude. So in an exam, we will be looking at how does KCPE, how do they set, or the questions that have been coming from previous years, how have they been examined? They normally ask which area in, for example, Wodanga area, which area is an area of high altitude and an area of low altitude. Another area is direction. Now, when you are handling direction, these are simple areas that candidates take it very simple but very challenging. If you look at KCPE past papers, you'll find out that most of the questions have been failed on direction. So direction, questions on direction of places have been tested frequently in most of the past KCPE years. And here, before you start answering questions on direction, you have to know, one, look at the key. Two, look at the compass direction. And three, look at the scale. Again, look at the key, look at the compass direction, and look at the scale. Also on direction, the examiner will tend to ask you on the rising and sloping of the land. So meaning that you should be able to know the compass direction. Number two, the examiner will always ask you the sloping of the land from one area to another. Still on the same, we'll be looking at how will you know the rising, how will you know about the rising and the rising of the land and the sloping of the land. Normally, land rises from an area of low altitude to an area of high altitude. We have already handled it here. Land slopes from a land of or an area of high altitude to an area of low altitude. That's about direction. Also, under direction, the examiner, they have been asking about the rising or the flow of a river. The rising or the flow of a river. The rising of a river or the flow. I want you to note that a river does not slope, it rises. A river does not slope, it rises. So examiners will ask you the rising of the river. A river always rises, rivers always rises from a high land. Remember, we have already covered how can you be able to know high and low land. So a river always rises from a high land. Then there's this confusion that normally confuses candidates, where they ask you, River Yala rises towards. This word towards is here to confuse candidates. This word here is here to confuse candidates. So if you get a question like this, where they ask you a river rises towards, make your own question here, rises from dash to dash, for you to capture two words. Rises from dash to dash. Then, so you will not pick here. You will pick the answer that will be in this point. And then also, candidates should know that rivers always rises from a high land. Rivers always rises from a high land. Let us look at another area known as economic activities. Economic activities on map work. Economic activities on map work, this is a question that has been coming frequently in KCPE. And we'll be looking at what are some of these economic activities and what are the indicators on map work. Some of these economic activities include crop farming. Now, on crop farming, what are some of the things are you supposed to know? Crop farming, the presence of tea, the presence of coffee, the presence of maize, presence of pyrethrum and cotton, sugarcane, all of them indicate crop farming. In contrary, there are some of the indicators, some of the symbols on map work that will be able to assist you to know which economic activity or which crop farming is practiced in that area. And I know my director is going to take me on page 3 to project that to see. If you see some of these crops, what do they indicate? If you see jaggery on map work, that is an indicator of sugarcane. If you see jaggery, that is sugarcane. TY quiz on the student side. What do the following represents on map work? That one you will text us on the number that you can see down there. 1, ginnery. If you see ginnery, what does it represent? 2, textile industry. 3, paddy fields. 4, tea estates. 5, milling plant. If you see those on map work, what do they indicate? Use the number that is down there to chat with us. Next, let us look at livestock farming. On map work, livestock farming is indicated by cattle dip, cattle ranches, dairy farms, also poultry farms. On livestock, there are 2. There are 3 really: pastoral farming, dairy farming, and beef farming. So on map work, pastoralism on a map is indicated by 1. Pastoralism is indicated by 1, cattle dips, ranches, boreholes, and only beef cattle are reared in ranches. What about dairy farms? Indicators of dairy farms on a map. Dairy farms, you will see 1, dairy farms, you will see dairy farming, you will see dairy farms. Milk production or milk collection centers and milk processing centers. You will also see butter factory. If you see butter factory, that is an indicator of dairy farming. Fishing, number 2, as an economic activity. Fishing is also one of the common economic activities on map. Some of the indicators on map work that we will tell you this is fishing, we have 1, fish traps, we have fish ponds, we have fishing villages, and also if you see a lake that is drawn on the map, lakes do not necessarily indicate that this is fishing, unless you see a lake where there is a fish drawn inside. And if you see a fish drawn inside, for example, if you see a fish drawn inside a lake and then there is an X, that shows that it is not fishing. So fishing, it is one of the areas that candidates think if they see a lake, then that is fishing. That is not the case here. It is not the case. So fish diagrams in a lake, I have talked about that. It will show you that this is fishing. It is important to note that presence of a lake on map work does not indicate fishing. It does not indicate fishing. Another economic activity is lumbering. Now lumbering, it refers to felling of trees. And on map work, lumbering is shown by the presence of sawmill. If you see sawmill, then that is definitely lumbering. Not that presence of a forest on map work does not necessarily show that is lumbering. Why? It's because most of the trees are protected areas. So if you see a forest in a given area, it does not necessarily mean that that is lumbering. Then we have for mining. Mining is also an economic activity represented by quarry, and learners should be able to understand vocabularies such as extinct and abandoned. If you see extinct mines or abandoned mines, there is no farming taking place. There is no farming taking place. Tourism is also an area that is commonly examined as an economic activity. And here, there are also indicators on map work. What are some of the indicators that will show you that tourism is taking place? One, we have, if you see game parks, if you see game reserves, cultural centers, animal orphanages, sanctuaries and historic sites, museums, accommodation centers, and airstrips. Those are areas, indicators that show this is tourism. What about trading as an economic activity? Trading as an economic activity on map work is indicated by 1, shops, and 2, markets, and lastly, towns. Note that all towns are commercial centers. So whenever you see somewhere like town, that is a commercial center. That is a commercial center. Transport and communication is also an area that is most commonly examined. And in this area, the examiner will test you to 1, tell the means of transport, the main means of transport in that area. 2, what, for example, if it is a railway, what is it supposed to transport? So when a railway line is passing near a sawmill, what does it transport? That is your TY quiz. If it passes through or near a sawmill or a sea farm, a sisal farm, maize farm, a sawmill, what do they transport? That is a question. And remember, railway lines always transport very bulky goods. Also, when there is both airstrip on map work, when there is both airstrip on map work or tourism on the map, then therefore the airstrip will be used to transport tourism. Again, when we have airstrip on a map and tourism, that will tell you that the airstrip is now used to transport tourism from one place to another. The presence of airstrip and horticultural farming on the map shows that the airstrip is now used to transport horticultural products. Number 4, let us look at climate. Climate is also an area that is most commonly examined. And in KCP, there are only 3 types of climates that are most commonly examined. These include cool and wet, hot and wet, hot and dry. These are three most commonly examined types of climates. This one we have already covered. Hot and dry climate, this is found in low altitude. Cool and wet is found in high altitude. That is why we started with altitude. Hot and wet, let me just handle hot and wet because we have handled cool and wet and hot and dry. Now, if you see hot and wet, it is indicated by rice, sugarcane, cotton, and grasslands. Number 5 is administration on map. Administration is an area that is most commonly examined on map work. Administration is most commonly examined on map work. And here, some of the questions asked is one, what or who is the executive or chief executive officer or the head of a given area? Now, if the area is a county, or all county offices shows that that area is a county. If you see county offices, that is a county. If you see sub-county boundary, that is a county. If you see county commissioner's office, that is a county. Now, if you want to look at the administration in this case, you need to identify if the area is a county or not a county. We have already seen how are you able to identify the administration. Now, one, if the question asks about who administers, or who is, number 2, who is the executive head? The executive head. Who administers or who is the executive head? If you find a question asking about who administers that area and that area is a county, the correct answer must be county commissioner. If they ask you who is an executive head, that is county governor. So be very, very careful when you are checking those two areas that are most commonly examined in KCPE. Also, on map work, they will also ask you who is the head of security. Head of security in a county. Remember, if the area is a county, the senior most administrator there becomes the county commissioner. The senior most becomes county commissioner. I want you to note the following. When you are dealing with administration, there are areas that you need to know. 1, trading licenses. Where can you obtain trading licenses? 2, so this is a question. 2, birth certificates. Birth certificate on map work. 3, death permits. Where do we take this one on map work? If it is trading licenses, we go for county offices. You go to county offices. Also, if it is death of a child, reporting the death of anybody on a map or the birth of a child, we will report it to the chief. Why do we report it to the chief? Because of census, which is counting of people. What about cases like murder? Cases like murder or theft. Murder or theft, you go for chief. That is all about administration. I have given you a question here. Who is the head of security on a map if that area is a county? Who is the head? That is your question. Put it or WhatsApp us using the number that you can see on the screen. Remember, in class 7 and 8 or at KCPE level, we are no longer asked questions about chiefs. We are no longer asked questions about sub-chiefs, locations, and sub-locations. We are no longer asked those questions. Let us go to measuring distance on a map. Measuring distance on a map. We are on measuring distance on a map. Now, measuring distance on a map, you need to know the following. I had already said the scale. 2, I had talked about the scale and the compass. Now, on measurement, Candidates will always be asked to measure the length of either a road or a railway line on the map. Be very careful. First, look at the scale. Look at the scale on the map. What about if the scale is not on the map? And I want to emphasize on that. There is no any question in KCPE that has ever been set where the scale is missing. The scale must be there. But for the exams we are doing at school, in our schools, what are you supposed to do? If you find a question that is asking you to measure the distance of a certain point of a Marham road, and then there is no key, that there is no scale, what are you supposed to do? You need to do one. You measure using a paper. The measurement that you will take, use a ruler, the normal ruler, 15 centimeters ruler. Use a ruler and get your measurement, just in case you don't have a scale. But in KCPE, that is very rare. You can never find that. There will always be a scale. You have learned about types of scales, so make sure you observe the scale that you are using. And make sure when you are also measuring, use a paper, which is recommended. Use a paper, which is recommended. It will give you estimate measurement. Also remember, when you are measuring, when you are in measurement, it is approximate. You don't give accurate results. Let us look at functions of a town. If you are asked about functions of a town on a map, this is an area that is also most commonly examined. And in this area, you will be asked about one. The candidate will be asked to ask or to give out why a given town has grown. Can you take it to me on the functions of a town so that my viewers can also be able to see? Thank you. This has become a common area in most of the exams. And how will you know the functions of a town? Make sure you observe the town boundary. Observe the town boundary. And the candidates must answer such questions with due attention to what is strictly within that boundary. If you are being asked something about a certain town and there is no, maybe that it is not within the town, that becomes there. You look at that and you use elimination method. Also, if a town is near a junction, then it has grown due to that junction. Also, if they ask you about the functions of a town, look at the economic activities, the social services that are around that town. Calculating the area on a map is also one of the area that is most commonly examined. How do you calculate area of an irregular shape? One, you divide the image, the area into small squares of 1 centimeters by 1 centimeters. Then you count complete squares, get the answer. Count in complete squares, get the answer. The incomplete squares, you will divide it by 2. For example, if it is 6 and this one is 8, you will divide 6 times 2 to get 3. Then you take now 8 plus 3 to get the area of an irregular shape. Also, when we're talking about calculating the area of a map, now the area of regular shapes, now it is where you will use the mathematics formula, the normal mathematical formula. Settlement on a map is also an area that is most commonly examined in KCPE. The examiner will test you on why the type of settlement or the type of settlement has been influenced by dash. So scattered population or dispersed population may also mean sparsely populated, and also when we have small groups, people settling in small groups. Remember on map work we use dots. In small groups or in clusters, separate areas, then that one becomes clustered or nucleated settlement. Mostly KCPE, the questions that normally are tested is why, or the reason or the type of settlement, or why has this settlement grown, or what has it, how has it been influenced. Let us look at religion as an area that is most commonly examined. Some of the religions that are most commonly examined, you need to look at one, the Islamic, the Muslims, Christianity, Hinduism, and traditionalists. Here we don't have much, but absence of all this means there is no religion. That is pagans. And then you should note that sometimes the map might have more than one religion. So you need to be very careful when you are answering. Choose the most dominant type of religion that is appearing in that map. Lastly, physical features is an area that is most commonly examined on map work. Physical features. Now, physical features on map work, they will ask you one on vegetation. The type of vegetation in this map is likely to be, for example, if this is the map, this is Wodanga area. If this is Wodanga area, there is now what we call forest here. They are asking you why, or the type of vegetation here is likely to be dash. Also, on physical features, you can be asked about the feature formed at the mouth of a river. The feature formed at the mouth of a river. Now, physical features, can you take me there kindly, my director? Features formed at the mouth of a river is one of the areas that is most commonly examined. Now, if you see a river entering its mouth with one channel, how do we call that? A river entering its mouth with one channel, how do we call that? Number two, a river entering its mouth with many channels, how do we call that? We should be able to know that. Now, when a feature enters, when a river enters its mouth with one channel, that becomes a delta. What about estuary? It is when it enters the mouth. No, a delta is delta when it enters with many channels, like the one we have here. This is delta. But when we have one channel, that becomes an estuary. Lastly is social services. Social services is also an area that is most commonly examined. Social services, you need to be very careful when you are dealing with this area, because they will ask you within the town. They will ask you within the town. What are some of the social services that are missing in that area? And some of the services that are asked, we have religion, we have educational services, we have security services, we have administration, we have health services. Again, religion, educational services, recreational services, security services, and health services. Learners, as we come to conclusion, we want to look at how has KCPE been setting these questions on map work. Let us look at map work analysis let us start with from 2019 to 2020. 2019 to 2022, my director, can you take me there? From 2019 to 2022, want to look at, it is very clear on your screen, you can see. If you observe keenly on your screen, you will find out that direction, measurement, climate, means of transport, settlement, economic activities, and evidence of administrative center. It came in 2019, and we have already covered them here. 2020, you can see measurement, physical features, the river source, climate, settlement, cultural activity, economic activity, evidence. 2021, you can also see direction, a function of a town, altitude, highest and lowest point. Now, but that one you have already seen, we have already covered here. Measurement, climate, physical features, type of vegetation, administration is also there. 2022, we have also direction, which was set, measurement, climate, social services, economic activity, settlement, and administration. And if you look at from 2019 to 2022, it is revolving around what we have covered today. It is revolving around what we have covered today. These are areas that we have already covered. Let us go to from 2015 to 2018. How have examiners been setting these questions from 2015 to 2018? You can see direction, the rising of the land. In 2015, measurement, setting up of a ranch, economic activity, climate, true statement about a river, which lies under physical features, evidence of administration. 2016, you can see again, measurement, direction or flow of a river. We have covered that, economic activity. Number 4, look, reporting a birth of a child is also there. Where do you report the birth of a child? We have climate, settlement, and transport. 2017, you can also see there, we have direction, the flow of a river, which was again set in 2016 question 2. Economic activities, physical features or type of vegetation, we can see altitude, source of water, administration, license, we have covered that. Then measurement. Look at question 2018, we have compass, direction, measurement, settlement. The town has grown due to social services and administration. Again, 2015 to 2018, they are still revolving around what we have covered today, meaning that there is nothing that is new there. There is nothing. From 2015 to 2018, it is revolving around what we have covered. Let us look at 2011 to 2014. 2011 to 2014. Look here. 2011 to 2014, it is still revolving around what we have covered today. It is still revolving around what we have covered today. Look, 2011, direction, measurement, the length of a railway, physical features of vegetation, true statement about a river, economic activity, settlement, administration. 2012, again, direction or flow of a river, measurement. Now there we are measuring the length, transport, altitude, climate, administration, physical features, about type of vegetation. 2013, direction, which is compass, measurement, again, altitude, climate, social services, economic activity, and religion. Look at 2014, altitude, which is highest point, measurement, climate, communication, sending messages, settlement, and economic activity, which is, and also last, social services. From the table that you can see, I want you to note, from 2011 to 2018, all questions 2 have been all about measurement. All questions 2 have been all about measurement. And I know we'll go back there so that you can see it clearly. Question 2, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 has been all about measurement. Meaning a question on measurement must be tested. Questions on climate must be tested. Look at question 2, measurement, length of railway line. 2012, measurement, length of tarmac road. 2013, measurement, length of tarmac road. And then 2014, measurement, calculating area. Also, the same table, I want you to look at economic activity. And if you check clearly, all the areas set in 2011, they were repeated 2012, 2013, and 2014. Only that the questions changed the language, the twisting of the questions, they changed. Now, I want us to now look at the final summary. The final summary that we are going to use now to see. That is the final summary. Look at your screen. Where we have Y means yes, it was set that question. Then where we have dash means that year, no question came there. I want you to look at direction from 2011. Remember, we are looking at from 2011. That is where we are based. From 2011 to 2022. From 2011 to 2022. That is where our analysis is coming from. And then after that, we will ask ourselves questions here. What about 2023, for example? What about 2023? If these questions came from 2011, 2022, we will be asking ourselves, what about 2023? That we are not going to answer. You will answer with your teachers in your classes as you revise. Now let us go there. We see the summary of these questions. Let us go there, the last area. Let us start with the direction. If you look at the screen clearly, from 2011, go with that line up to 2012. You will find out that 2 years, that is 2014 and 2020, only those 2 years, there was no any question to do with the direction of a place. Why do you think that the questions or the setting of direction was not set in 2014 and 2019? And you can see it has been progressing, meaning In 2013, we don't know if it will come. But now during your revision, using that tabulation, you'll be able to know, can it come or not? That one we are not aware. Number 2 is measurement. I want you to look from 2011. It is very amazing. 2011, a question on measurement has been coming. A question on measurement. That is amazing. It is the only amazing point, amazing area that has amazed me and made me happy. That from 2011 to 2022, a question on measurement has been coming. So now, if from 2022, from 2011 to 2022, measurement has been coming, and we'll confirm after the lesson, what about 2023? What about 2023? If from 2011 to 2022, the question of measurement has been coming, what about it? 2023. Economic activities, that's the area number 3. Let us go to economic activities. You can also see we only have 3 years that was not set. That is 2012, 2018, and 2021. Again, 2012, 2018, and 2021. Those areas were never set. But it came all the way, apart from 3 years. Look at climate. Climate. This is an area that has been coming also, but it has been coming in patterns. 2011 was not there. 2012 we had. 2013 was not there. Then 3 consecutive years it came. Then the following year it did not come. From 2018 to 2022, 2018 to 2022, question on climate has been coming. 2018 to, that is very amazing. From 2018 to 2022, a question on climate has been coming. What about 2023? We are not answering that question. Settlement. Settlement is a question that has been also coming. It came in 2011. From 2011, the next 4 years, it did not come. Until 2016, it came 1 year, and then it missed. And then from 2018 to 2020 has been coming. 2021 did not come. 2022, it came. If you look at settlement as an area that is most commonly examined, you will find out that the trend or the pattern in which has been set there is also amazing based on what we are looking at KCPE 2023 for the candidates who are going to sit for that exam. Look at administration. Administration is also an area that is very, very amazing. It is very amazing. 2011, it came. 2012, it came. That means 2 consecutive years, that question has been coming. Then from there, 2013, 14, 15, a question on, to 2016, a question on administration has not been coming. Then it came again 2 consecutive years. Then 2 consecutive years, it missed. Then 2 consecutive years, it came. Meaning, if from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Look here, we're looking at administration. 2017 and 2018, yes, it came. 2019 and 2020, it did not come. 2021 and 2023, it came. So let us assume if we could have 2023 and 2024, what could be here? We don't know. We don't know what can come. But during your revision, you use that analysis to revise and revise very, very careful. And this one is also amazing because the first 2 years, a question comes. 2 years, it does not come. 2 years, it comes. 2 years, it misses. So that tells you what are you expecting. Physical features, that is an area that I've said it is also most commonly examined, and candidates need to be very careful when they are handling that question on physical features, because they can ask you to give an example in Africa. For example, a feature formed, which is an example of a feature that is formed in a given area. For example, if it is the mouth of River Nzoia or River Yala on a map, you make sure you are able to know if it is a delta or an estuary. On physical features, we only had 2011 and 2012. Then from there, it also collapsed up to 2016. Then it appeared 1 year. Then from there, you will find out that those questions have been also said. Then functions of a town is an area that is most commonly examined. But if you check on your screen, functions of a town, kindly take me there, please. Functions of a town, that question has only come 2 years, from 2011 to 2022. When a question does not come severally, that does not mean it will not be set. And when it comes severally, that does not mean it will be set. Again, when a question does not come several years, that does not tell you it will be set. And if it misses, it does not also mean that that area will not come. Then altitude. Take me there also. Altitude is an area that is most commonly examined. We have 2011, it came 3 years. Then from there, 2 years missed, then like that. Then when it comes to social services, it has only come 4 years. 4 years alone. 4 years alone on social services. So, learners, students, and teachers who are watching me today, we have looked at map reading and map work. Remember, this is an area that is most commonly examined. Do not assume anything. Do not think that you know. A good student who will score 7 out of 7 is the one who will take everything the teacher teaches very seriously. For example, we have talked about direction. Yes, there are things that we know, but if you look at the newsletters, as I've said, you'll find out that these areas have been failed by most of the candidates in the past years. So don't assume any question. Take every instruction very, very carefully. Do a lot of practice, practice, and practice. The only difference between a candidate who scores 2 out of 7 and a candidate who scores 7 out of 7 is because this one does a lot of practice and this one does not do. That brings me to the end of my lesson for today. I have been your teacher, Teacher Duncan Gwadima from Ahadi Presbyterian School. I am a KCPE, a facilitator for social studies and CRE, preparing candidates for national exams. I'm also a resource person, providing learning resources for teachers and students. And lastly, I'm also an online coordinator. We coordinate online sessions. We also have, for the candidates and for the parents, we also have a system, an e-learning platform called Examino, where you can download exams, print for your candidate, do them, or candidates can still do them online and get the exam. Let me just give you what I've said. The candidates can go to www.examino.com. This is an e-learning platform. It is an e-learning platform for teachers and parents. The candidates can be able to, the students can do revision online with the automatic grading system. It will give you the grading, and also you can be able to print the exams on the Examino system. So if you go there, the parents and teachers can also access through this website and go there and find out what you are supposed to do. You will go to the students' dashboard. That brings me to the end of our lesson for today. My name is Teacher Duncan. Until next time, I want to say goodbye and all the best to the candidates of the year 2023. Shalom.